Last time when I hit these bearings out, I used a 21mm socket because they were slightly smaller than the circumference of the old bearing. The reason I did that was so I could drive it out without scoring up the inside. Well, now I want to take this flat edge and I want it to stop right at that flat edge. So I got a socket that's too big to go through, but nice and flat to hit the bearing. So I got a socket that's just, it's going to hit it right to that flat surface and then stop. So let's see if we can get this in here without hurting ourselves again. Again, there's special tools for this at work that I could be using, but I'm showing you guys how to do this at your house. And I'll just keep tapping until the outer edge of that socket catches the swing arm and stop. Almost home. There we go. There again, you hear the pitch change. Bearing's nice and free, no damage to it. Alright, we'll do the other side real quick. Man, it was hard enough working without a tripod and dealing with a camera to do all this. Now I'm trying to manage my thumb and an injury. I don't know how smart this is. I hope it's a blessing to you guys. I want to do it and I want to help you, but around about dinner time tonight, I'm going to be a hurting puppy. That's it. Alright, you got your swing arm bearings in. Flat with that surface. Flat with that surface right there. Plenty of spoogily grease in all directions and all angles, every which way. Okay, here's my cleaned up little thrust bearing. That's a nice bearing from Suzuki. I'm going to use that instead of that cheap one the All Balls kit came with. Cleaned all the sand out of that, made it nice, and got some good fresh steel surfaces for it to ride on. Alright, there's my seal. My thrust bearings and thrust faces are all in there. Outer spacer is inside. And that indexes this to where it needs to be out here. I think we're gold. Get lots of grease and goo all over this torsion bearing here. Lube up these steel face plates. Okay, so you saw how I did that, right? I got the inner collar. Let me pull it out where I used it to set a seal. I got this inner collar coming through the bearing like that. Then I got a steel faceplate for the bearing to ride on. Then I got the bearing itself, and then the other steel faceplate for the bearing to ride on. And now all we should need is the outer seal and the spacer for the swing arm to go into the frame, which will look like this. That's it. She's in there. And then press her back to the other side, push the collar out. Now that everything's properly installed, well, let me wipe my hands off before I handle my injury here. Now that everything's properly installed, this should slide right up between the frame rail, and the engine should slide right up in between it. Use using my left hand for this. Handle the camera. Alright, see this space here between the swing arm and the collar? That's natural. That's a natural space that should exactly equal the back of the engine cases. So I'm going to slide this into the frame after I wipe all the grease and goo off. I'm going to slide it in the frame and start the axle on one side just to hold it, and then I'm going to see if the engine fits in there. As I got the swing arm just dangling in there and set, I didn't torque the pinch axle, or I didn't torque it. I just set it in there, you know, so I can start putting this linkage and all back together. I probably should have put these linkages on the swing arm before I put it over there, because now I'm going to be working upside down, but that's okay. Forethought, note to self for the future. So the way this linkage works, this is the skinny part that goes up into the shock. That means this is the swivel that bolts to the frame of the bike. This is what this attaches to. Like that. So this attaches to the bike, this attaches to the bike, and that's what gives you your changing leverage ratio. I'll give you a demonstration of that when I get it all put together. So this is one of the thin small bolts for one end of it. This is keyed to go into that swing arm right there on that flat spot. So that bolt right there is what goes in here like that. So that means this one goes across. Is that the right length? Yes, it is. Look at that. It's a perfect length to go across and torque down. So I'm going to grease these bolts up. That means this one must go here. So, yep. Ow, my thumb hurts. Alright, so you see that? I need... Yeah. No, I have all the hardware I need. Because the one that goes in there is on the shock. That's a shock bolt. So, I got 3 nuts, 3 bolts. I'm going to grease it all up and start putting it together. Guys, I'm going to show you how these advanced linkage ratio swing arms, they all have them. Cal, Suzuki, Yamaha, Honda, they all use them. The way this particular example works is when your swing arm is all the way down and it moves a little bit, you see how the shock mount point moves a little bit? This part right here. The shock mount moves a little bit when the swing arm moves a little bit. Now watch this. As you come up, it starts moving a little quicker. That's mid-stroke. Now as you bottom out, watch what it does. Wow, look how fast it's moving now. A little bit of swing arm motion makes a lot of motion on the shock. The purpose for that, it's impossible to valve a shock to be real super soft on all the little stuff and then massively stiff at the end of the stroke. They can try, and there's been massive advancements in shock technology, but it's hard to do that. A much more efficient way for the manufacturers is to just stroke the shock a little bit on the little bumps, and then when you have a big hard landing, it's got to move that shaft really far, and that's how they do it. Okay guys, I got the engine mocked in there, the hollow engine that's not rebuilt yet. It's just all hollow, just a head on a jug on a pair of cases. But I'm just mocking up the install because I want to see if I can get this swing arm in there, torque the bolt down, and feel the play before I put the shock on. If you put the shock on the swing arm, you'll never feel the quality of the stroke. What I mean by that is as the swing arm goes up and down through the stroke, with a shock in the way, you don't know if it feels smooth or notchy. So I want to feel that swing arm as it's fully torqued down before I install the shock. So that's why I'm mocking it up with the engine. So I'm going to put a few more bolts in it and get it lined up, and we'll come back and show you what I'm talking about. Okay, you turkeys, look what you got me doing. You got me out here in the rain just so I can working on this thing, just so I can move on to the next part of my project. I want to build this engine. As you all know, that's just a hollow casting. So there's a collar by the frame, then there's a rubber seal, then there's a thrust face, thrust bearing, thrust face, then a bearing, then on the inside there's another seal, then the collar inserts from this side. Now that the swing arm's in, I torque that, I torqued all 3 of the bolts holding the linkages and stuff together. So I wanted to see how freely this moved. Look how beautiful it is. It's so nice. There's no play left to right. There's no play in and out. There's no play in a twisting motion. There's no play in any direction whatsoever. And it's so free. I mean, it just feels so good. So I'm really proud of how that turned out. The other thing I could do, I'll probably do it later because right now it's raining and it's getting late and I want to eat and go to bed, but like I need to eat, right? But I need to get the handlebars on here and the back wheel at least. That way I can roll the thing around. All right, guys, God bless. Thanks for hanging out in the rain with me. See what I do for you?